but I would doubt that most of them believe that Donald Trump is an agent of God.
But I can also see a lot of people watching this saying, we actually just like his policies.
It didn't start with red hats or angry rallies. It didn't begin with walls or Twitter rants. The story of how Donald Trump built a political cult, yes, a cult, started with something much simpler: attention. Long before he ever descended that golden escalator in 2015, Trump understood the most powerful currency in America wasn't money or policy. It was obsession. If people were talking about you, you mattered. And if they couldn't stop talking about you, you owned them. That insight became the foundation of a political movement that broke every rule, survived every scandal, and transformed millions of voters into something more than supporters.
Is best described as him, first of all, as the absolute leader who demands total obedience. He was recruited by authoritarian cult people as a good figurehead for them to have political influence and power.
It turned them into believers. Step 1 was visibility. Trump didn't need to climb the traditional ladder of politics. He was already famous. For decades, he sold a version of himself that was larger than life: a billionaire mogul, a playboy, a winner. It didn't matter that much of it was smoke and mirrors. The myth worked. He had the buildings, the books, the beauty pageants, and of course, The Apprentice. By the time he entered politics, he wasn't a candidate, he was a character, and for millions of Americans who felt ignored, disrespected, or just bored, he was a new kind of political weapon. Step 2 was grievance. Trump didn't run on hope or vision, he ran on anger. He told people they were right to be furious, right to feel betrayed, right to hate the elites, the media, the experts, the immigrants, the establishment, the whole rotten system.
Who has a malignant narcissist personality, which is the stereotypical profile, by the way, of other cult leaders. But the bottom line was that he was a clone of his father, Fred, and he did all of his business practices.
While other politicians tried to offer solutions, Trump offered permission. Permission to blame, permission to mock, permission to say the quiet part loud. He didn't need policy. He needed enemies, and the more enemies he named, the more powerful he became. Step 3 was language. This part was key. Cults don't just use words, they reshape them. Trump turned fake news into a shield. He turned deep state into a rallying cry. He stripped politics down into slogans: build the wall, lock her up, drain the swamp. He made complex issues sound like simple binary battles. Good versus evil.
But the specific pyramid structure controls people's behavior, information, thoughts, and emotions. The sign of a cult member is the inability to see the possibility that the leader could be bad or wrong.
Patriots versus traitors. You're with us or you're the enemy. It wasn't about nuance, it was about identity. If you said the words, you were in the tribe. If you questioned them, you were cast out. Step 4 was loyalty. This is where Trump separated himself from every other modern politician. He didn't want your vote, he wanted your loyalty. Personal, emotional, tribal loyalty. That's why he punished anyone who crossed him, even slightly. It's why his supporters chanted for rivals to be jailed. It's why facts didn't matter, only allegiance did. If someone criticized him, they weren't just wrong, they were traitors. And if someone defended him, no matter how outrageous the scandal, they were heroes. Step 5 was persecution. Every good cult needs an external threat.
So in that cult, people have a black and white, all or nothing, good versus evil mindset, or has all of the answers. I think many of them who voted for him were already Republican, for example.
Something to bind the group together and justify extreme behavior. For Trump, it was the media, the Democrats, the FBI, the globalists, the woke mob. He told his followers they weren't just voting, they were at war, that the system was rigged, that elections were stolen, that only he stood between them and annihilation. And once people believe they're under attack, they'll do anything to protect the leader who claims to defend them. Step 6 was absorption. Trump didn't just build a movement. He swallowed a political party. The Republican Party, once defined by Reaganomics and neoconservatism, became an extension of Trump's will. Candidates who opposed him were crushed. Institutions that resisted him were gutted. CPAC became a Trump fest. Fox News became a megaphone. Traditional conservatives were forced to choose, bend the knee or be erased, and most of them bent.
But I would doubt that most of them believe that Donald Trump is an agent of God.
But I can also see a lot of people watching this saying, we actually just like his policies.
Step 7 was the symbol. Every cult needs one. For Trump, it was himself, his face on flags, his name on hats, his voice on loop. The rallies weren't just political events, they were rituals. People cried when they saw him. They drove hundreds of miles just to hear him speak. Some got tattoos, others treated his speeches like scripture. He didn't represent the movement, he was the movement. And like all cults, the deeper people went, the harder it became to leave. Step 8 was inversion. This is when truth stops mattering. When reality bends to fit the belief, not the other way around. If Trump was accused of corruption, it was a smear job. If he lost an election, it was rigged. If a former ally testified against him, they were a plant. Over time, his followers didn't just reject criticism. They preemptively distrusted anything that didn't come from Trump himself or his approved sources. He became the only source of truth, and that's when the line between politics and religion completely vanished. Step 9 was sacrifice. On January 6, 2021, the world saw what happens when political cultism reaches its peak. People stormed the U.S. Capitol. They built gallows. They chanted to hang the vice president. Some came with weapons. Others wore military gear. Many believed they were saving the country. But they weren't there for America. They were there for Trump. He told them to come. He told them to fight, and they did. Not for policy, not for party, for him. Even after the violence, after the deaths, after the arrests, Trump's grip didn't weaken. In fact, for many, it grew stronger. The prosecutions became proof of the conspiracy. The media coverage became proof of the bias. The more Trump was cornered, the more his followers felt justified. And in cult logic, persecution equals validation. Step 10, the final step, is normalization. This is the scariest part, when something extreme stops feeling extreme. When a man with dozens of criminal charges becomes the front runner again. When violent rhetoric is brushed off as passion. When lies become talking points. When fascism becomes just another option on the ballot. That's the point we've reached. Because Trump didn't just build a cult, he built an entire ecosystem. There are TV channels that defend him, podcasts that evangelize him, merch stores that profit from him, churches that pray for him, politicians who mimic him, billionaires who back him, and voters who will follow him, no matter how far he goes. It's not about 2024. It's not even about Trump anymore. It's about what he unlocked and what millions of people are now willing to believe, do, or excuse in the name of that belief. That's what makes it a cult. Not just loyalty to a man, but a complete rewiring of how truth, power, and morality are understood. You can try to debate them, you can show them evidence, you can point out hypocrisies. But if you've ever talked to someone deep inside the Trump cult, you know it doesn't matter. Facts bounce off. Logic dissolves. It's not about reason. It's about belonging, identity, salvation. And that's the danger. Because cults don't need a plan. They don't need a platform. They just need a leader who can convince enough people that the world is broken, and that only he can fix it. Trump was that leader, still is, and if nothing changes, he'll do it all again, step by step.